boys, you want to die for Ukraine, I hear.
Yeah, not even for our country, like.
No, we're not dying for Britain.
Hey,
That's not important.
hey. Russia is pushing up against our borders right now. They're just on the coastline. They're throwing out all the migrants from those rubber dinghies. They're saying, "Make way, boys."
So for people who don't know what we're talking about, we're not talking about the obsession over the Ukrainian war and the different perspectives, and that's a whole conversation that has valid points on both sides, of course. But we're talking about what is happening in the UK, which is there's been a massive discussion that we all need to get conscripted because the army doesn't really exist anymore because no one's signing up. And the idea is that we need this because a war with Russia is going to break out between NATO and Russia any minute. Trust me, bro. And the reason that the army doesn't exist is pretty obvious. Well, it's the same thing in the United States. The white people don't really want to fight.
Do you know what?
It's not just white people, though, is it? It's the native people.
Yes.
So the WASPs in America and the English and Welsh and Scottish here.
I have a different angle on this because,
Go ahead.
first of all, they abolished some great regiments in the British Army, and the concept of, say, for example, the Coldstreams recruiting in Birmingham and certain areas, you don't see them there now because it's all gone to capita recruiting, and you fill a form in. You don't see anybody that's in forces. You don't see anybody that's in the army. The only time you ever see them is actually when you see the reserve, and they may be in a town with a little porter cabin for a couple of days.
Yeah.
That's the only time you see them. Whereas when I signed up, I went to Oldham Careers Information Office. The Royal Air Force was there. The Army was there. The Royal Navy was there. And you saw people that had done the service, usually of warrant officer rank. And they could tell you where they've been around the world, what they've done, etc., etc.
Actual community interaction.
Actual community interaction. So that's one. Two, the last defence round, when you go to places like Bisley, sorry, not Bisley, that's the range, Purbright, which is where they go. You see all the recruits with different regiments, regimental berets on, and different regiments, and they march out, and you're not part of any regiment, and that's an American style that we're not used to. When you see Zulu and the film, and you see them all of one regiment, and they're all standing for their own brother next to them, that's where we've gone wrong.
One of the reasons we've gone wrong.
It's one of the reasons.
For sure.
It is.
The point I'm not getting at just this is a pure ideological thing. There's obviously lots of failures throughout the entire system of this.
Yeah.
I mean, Capita you mentioned. I mean, for people who don't know, absolute disaster of a company. I mean, they are actually responsible for that stupid poster campaign, you may remember. It was like, Zoomers, we need you to be selfish in the army. Like, what the hell is this? Just bad ideas. But
yeah, you're right.
But the fundamental being, if you can't get people into the army, then there's nothing. Because that's what it is.
Yeah, but again, you've got the army slogan, "Be the best." Was there for years. It was there when I started, and it's been there for years. And now that was deemed too elitist.
Yeah.
What is it?
I thought we were elite.
Is it be second best? Be runners up?
But the British Army's advert for a while was, "It's okay to fail." And it's okay to fail, because then you try again, you fail again, you try again and fail, and then you get it right when it matters. But,
when you're retreating, the high command is going to be patting you on the back. Oh, good chance, good try, bros.
Good try, but we're all dead.
There's no award for second place in a war.
No,
exactly. and that's exactly.
Well, there are. They're bullets.
Tombstones.
Yeah.
But the point here being that there's been massive shortfalls in the United States military that have come out, and they have the specific numbers. We can talk to at least this, which is that of the other groups, non-white groups in the United States, recruitment is about the same or increased slightly. But of the white recruits, which makes up the majority group, that's halved. In a single year, halved.
Yeah.
And it's been going down already as a trend. And in the UK, we have a similar situation going on, but with the added context of the military in all branches being actively anti-white, this story being an RAF one we went over.
Yeah.
And this brings us on to what we're discussing, just to make it clear, which is that a bunch of news outlets started rummaging this story that Brits might be called up to fight in an all-out war with Russia as the military is too small, Army Chief warns, right, LBC there. And they weren't the only ones. A lot of media outlets went with this. And then there's the response, which I think you're hinting at perfectly, which is people being like, yeah, no, this isn't a surprise. And just conscripting everyone. Well, let's see what that looks like, shall we? Because a lot of people were a bit confused. I mean, why are they putting this out exactly? There were some theories that this is just the Ministry of Defense trying to find out what the appetite would be for conscription. That this is some kind of test of public opinion. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I think it's probably more likely that. I mean, this article's from 2018, just talking about the fact that it's really hard to get people into the army. It's continuously being more and more difficult because of all the problems. I think that's probably more what they're getting at, is that if they needed to radically increase the size of the British military, if you want to do it volunteer-wise, I don't think there's actually the capacity, or at least not the skill to get that done.
Well, they've actively campaigned to discourage white people to join the army. I've seen, it's okay to cry in the army. It's okay to pray. And what you've got is, a load of white soldiers walking with a Muslim soldier, and then they're in the middle of the hills, and the Muslim needs to pray now, so he gets his mat out, and then all the other guys are standing there waiting, like sitting ducks, so this guy can pray. And it's not a pretty sort of idea anymore to join the army, or something to be proud of, what it seems.
Well, that's a consideration you have to take into account as well. If you're thinking about joining the army, especially it being young men, what they're looking for is a sense of belonging and fraternity. They're looking for, like you say, to be able to stand side by side with someone they consider to be their brother, who they would lay their lives down for. If you know that you're going to join a regiment and somebody, because of their ethnic background, is going to have some kind of advantage and can cry wolf at you and can get special needs for them to be able to pray at certain times, you know that situation is now unequal in a way where everyone of the regiment should be on even footing with one another. You're not going to get that fraternity. There is going to be resentment that builds up. So it's not offering that same dream of brotherhood to young men.
But I mean, again, and it was quite hard. All the Guards regiments, you had to be above 6 foot to join any one of the Guards regiments. Then you got our now king saying there needs to be a few black faces in the Guards regiments. But if your regiment has been going for 400 years and you've recruited in specific areas for 400 years, and you've got your grandfather and your great-grandfather and your great-great-grandfather going into that regiment, and then they're now saying, sorry, you can't come, but if you've got a black face, you can. That's destroying the regimental, the whole history of that regiment goes like that. About 15 years ago, there was a guy that was commanding the trooping the colour, and he was called Julius Caesar, and he's been the third Julius Caesar in that regiment by his grandfather and his great grandfather, and it's that kind of tradition that's what keeps either a county regiment or indeed a regiment. It's just part of it.
There was a time where people were proud to die for that regiment.
But it's the snipping and the snipping and the snipping and the snipping all the time. And then, of course, you introduce the mix of women into the forces. And the Royal Marines are the only regiment, well, the only corps, actually, that says, nope, if you can get past this...
Yeah, we're not lowering the standards.
Yeah,
we're not lowering the standards. But that standard has been lowered for nearly every other regiment.
And I think you're right to hit on that a lot of different points have contributed to this. It isn't all of a sudden. Of course, the ideological perspective, the diversity equals more goods, is the fundamental failure here. Because as you say, you go from something that's like an extended family and has a long history and roots within the community, and then you just went, nah, screw that. I want the civilian world's obsession with diversity shoved into it.
Yeah,
it's on a lot of fronts. This is caused by this, but it's a lot of small things. It's not just.
You're right. I mean, on my son's side, his grandfather was Welsh regiment, wounded in France, and there is a plaque on a bakery where he held his stomach together for 3 days against the bakery whilst he commanded his platoon. And I know that because my son's been out to see the grave and also that plaque. But also, I've got a 3-page letter from the commanding officer in Llanelli saying that he was one of the finest and courageous NCOs. He was a leader of his men, and he was very, very sorry to see him go. And that he, in a civilian life, he played for Llanelli Town football, and it's that it's that kept, it's more than small pieces.
Yeah.
That tradition, it goes back, it flows through people. And once you cut it, which is what they've done, it's very hard to put
Starts
it
to fall
back.
apart.
Well, on that point, it's like in small towns. In Nantwich, for instance, in the town centre, there is a Great War monument of all of the people from the local area who died, and you can look around it, and they've got all of the names listed, and they're still surnames that are in that local area because it will be family members that people still there lost themselves, and that inspires people to think that they died for a cause, they died to protect me, so that I can be here right now. What you don't find on any of those old monuments, for the most part, unless there are specialized ones around London, is that you'll have a Mr. Singh Khan or anything like that listed on those. No, it'll be British names.
Yeah.
Because they're from Britain rather than the imperial provinces where you'll have them.
Yeah.
But moving forward, we need to get to this because this is the defense secretary who came out immediately and was like, "Oh yeah, this is all about just getting people to sign up." So I think probably it's kind of a conversation about that, but this revealed something much deeper in British society right now, which is nobody, and I mean nobody, really wants to actually fight for this country.
Yeah.
And you can see it in the responses.
It's interesting that if we're genuinely afraid that Russia is going to go beyond Ukraine and mount some kind of ground invasion of Europe that could somehow make it to the British Isles,
Someone's been playing Modern Warfare 3 too much.
they will literally advertise to supposedly our greatest threat, by the way, we're weak.
I've just thrown out a challenge to Tice, who's been on another WEF cretin. With him, chaps, he is as well. And the fact is this: that actually, in 1989, when the Cold War, when the Iron Curtain fell, in 1989, NATO had 16 countries. It had a buffer zone all around it because they were former East German, Eastern Bloc countries. Now we're right up against their border. So who's the aggressor?
Yeah.
NATO was a defensive organization under Article 6 of the Atlantic Alliance, and we've gone right up to their borders. In Ukraine, they have actually broken the Kiev. The Minsk.
I don't want to
1 and
rehash
2.
it. We don't have the time to rehash all of this.
But the reasons are multiple. It's not just that we've got woke people in this country, and we have, but also there was a TikTok video yesterday of a Muslim lad, and he said, "No, I'm not going to fight for you lot," and you can send all the right wing fascists first.
I'm sure we'll see plenty of those as we go along.
That's what we're getting to. I just want to say, just for balance sake, nothing else, on that point about NATO expansionism, those states did want to join for a reason as well. There are both sides to all that. But I don't want to get into that conversation. I want to focus solely on our island, because our island is more important to me than European affairs. So, just real quick, population of the United Kingdom, well, 26% of it is non-white British. So of the army, what have we got? Well, you can go and find it online, and here's the data if you feel like having a gander. It's the officers. They are 3% ethnic minorities, and of the other ranks, it's 11%. That's the data. So you can go and find it. I believe it's down here.
Well, it sounds like we need quotas to fix that. It sounds like there's some underrepresentation going on. If there's a disparity, there must be discrimination.
But the specific examples go even more extreme when you look at Muslims, for example. They're 8% of the population, but less than 1% of the armed forces. And so you would think that his message there about we need more people in the army, the demographics changing, the army says in that previous example that the demographics are changing. That's why they have a tough time in 2018 getting more people into the army. Not telling the full story there, but okay. And so is this going to work? Is that what they're actually getting for? They want to recruit more ethnic minorities en masse, and they're going to become the new stock of the army in the same way that Scots are disproportionately represented. Is that their goal?
People who consider themselves our ancestral enemies are going to be jumping at the bit to fight for us.
I mean, you could phrase it as like, come on.
oh yeah, good point.
Die for the multicultural empire, boys. The British Empire's still not dead. It's live and well. So there we are.
Die for your hate speech laws.
Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look at what people had to say.
Die for the Communications Act.
Dr. Scholar, someone who should be on the front lines and would love to come and fight for the multicultural empire. Funnily enough, not too interested.
I'd like her on the front line.
Yeah. Let's see what she had to say.
Hold on. Okay. All right.
Oh, it's too quiet.
Brits will be called up to fight in an all-out war with Russia as military is too small. Army chief warns. Which Brits? Oh, you must be calling to the native indigenous white British. Oh, you do you, baby. Not putting out. Rule Britannia. Because I know you aren't looking at me as Brit.
Oh,
No,
that's
no, no,
true.
no. Not this fine black British born face, which you have consistently called non-native, non-indigenous. You don't belong here. You're not British. Go back to Africa. Your name isn't English. Deporter, deporter, deporter. But this indeed
Deporter.
is a very serious situation. Whatever shall Britain do? Racists assemble! Come on.
And then she plays Rule Britannia.
I
Now,
hate this
can
woman.
somebody-
I cannot stand this
Somebody
woman.
clip her saying deport her closer to the camera so that I can post that back at her.
Make it a ringtone.
Yeah, I can post it. I can get in so much trouble on Twitter with a clip like that.
Now, for people who aren't familiar, Shola is a Nigerian.
Isn't she
born
related
person.
to a royal family?
Yeah, she is related
Yeah.
to the Nigerian royal family.
Yeah.
Who
And-
enslaved the black people.
Indeed, they did.
Yeah.
And she lives an incredibly privileged life in the United Kingdom, whining about how white British people are evil and all of our traditions are evil. Now, this is the exact sort of person the army have indicated they would love to hire. They would love to get the multicultural, obsessed individuals to be on board. Otherwise, why else do they spend all their time with diversity and inclusion in that regard? She's not joining. Instead, her response was, "Hey, racists, defend me."
Yeah.
No.
It's-
How about no?
But that's her actual argument: is that
It is.
the racists need to die to protect my privileged life.
Yeah.
That's her actual worldview. If you look at that video in sincerity, which
And,
is amazing.
and actually, I haven't seen this one. I saw another one of a Muslim guy doing it,
Mm.
but the same
Well,
the same
The same narrative,
the
isn't
same narrative.
No, no,
Which is the-
I mean, the thing is, these people are
These people
are not. I know, right? I know. Are not, as much as it may say so on a piece of paper issued by the government, actually British. They'll
Yeah.
make the argument when it comes to having arguments
does-
with racists
What does
online.
British mean at this point?
Yeah, it just
Well, yeah.
It means that you have been classified by the Indian Prime Minister.
Yeah, because this is the
British.
fundamental conversation.
They know that. They know if they go back more than maybe 2 generations, they have no ties to
None.
this land
Yeah.
whatsoever, and they will still be going on holiday in their native homeland.
So that's the real crux of this issue, because I think the United Kingdom has had this problem where we're not really sure what British means, because the official line is that anyone can become it
Yeah.
if you just get a passport. In fact, we are going to portray the public and import as many people as possible from the foreign lands, and they are just the same. But that obviously doesn't mesh with reality at any point, because why else do you get these endless results?
We need to make a documentary like echoing Matt Walsh, just called "What Is a Briton?"
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is a TV sycophant who was born in Leicester, a not very British place.
No.
And she's like, she jokes. She makes jokes the whole thing. Thank God I'm from Pakistan about this whole thing. Which, okay, you class
Well,
that
I
as a
was
joke.
only pretending
God
to
I'm
be
from
stupid.
See, in the
Oh,
American,
so it suits. It's when it suits. Like, does she
Yeah.
class
Yeah.
herself as British otherwise?
Are we going to be really making these posters? Like, your country calls, list now, save there's Birmingham. but-
in the American Civil War, both sides actually got people coming off the boat and conscripting them. So perhaps that's what we should do: open a recruiting centre at Dover.
Yeah, it's been
Perhaps.
right then. Welcome,
Stick-
lads. You're in the army
Stick 'em-
now.
You're in the army now, and then stick them in Ukraine.
So you got these responses endlessly. This is a local social housing enjoyer, I presume, who says that why can't all those racists handle? They've got the flags in their bio. Why are they not all patriots saying it's our country? Time to shine. Go and fight. It's like funny yet again. They're these individuals' worldview who presumably agree with the official state line that just anyone can become
Yeah.
British if you wave a wand. They exist in a privileged position, which they have access to this nation and its set up. And in return, they offer nothing, and in fact, hate the natives, think they're all racist scum who
Well,
should die for them.
They offer scorn. That's all they offer.
Yes.
I made the joke that apparently British citizenship ends as soon as you exit the dole office.
Mm.
That's how a lot of these people are viewing.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, on that, like all the racists with the British flag and the English flag. What about all the ones with the Ukrainian flag? Surely they should be the first ones to go up, shouldn't they?
oh, for
Because
sure.
they're supporting it.
Yeah,
Actually,
Gary,
we should
Gary
know.
Lineker.
Gary Lineker. Yeah, that's
he could-
exactly what I mean.
He could lead.
And-
he could lead the ethnic force.
I was
Couldn't
going to say they fill the quota on the diversity side then as well because he is black.
So, Speaking of the country in question, I mean, this may recall you to actually think back to what happened in Ukraine, which is, of course, for some reason, while there's an actual proper war, they're not obsessed with recruiting women.
Mm.
You may have noticed those examples I gave you. It was women laughing about all this, which, have you seen the videos of men being forcibly recruited in Ukraine? And then there's women laughing as the guy runs away from the conscription. It's like, that's sick.
Yeah.
But this happened when the war broke out, which is these local Ukrainian men were interviewed by the media.
See, that's the face of an ancient Ukrainian. Let's not forget.
Let's listen.
He's indigenous.
One Congo native saying he was discriminated against while trying to board a train out of Ukraine. Take a listen.
They even told us, like, we are going to give you guns and you're going to fight for Ukraine. I said, hi. We're going to fight for Ukraine? We are not Ukrainian. We are black. So how can we fight? How can we fight for Ukraine?
One Congo
laughing at it is probably the proper reaction. Also, he's got a point there. Why would we give this guy a gun? Why would I give this guy a gun?
Well, why would you expect him to die for a land he's visiting? And that's the fundamental problem here. I mean, you can do the reverse, which is the Russian solution. I don't know if you've read about this. They just started raiding illegal immigrant areas and just conscripting them by force, which
Well, it's a way to get your ticket, I suppose, isn't it?
is the British government going to do that?
Well, the British government is doing that. No, they are. They actually are. They're recruiting in Nigeria and other Commonwealth countries. And after 5 years, you get your passport. And amazingly, at the 4 years and 3/4 mark, they may well be married, and they turn. This is an army thing. If you're a 3, you're married. If you're a 1, you're single. So at the 3/4 mark, they change it from 3 to 1, and housing managers in the army have to go and say, "I'm sorry, you're not married anymore. Can we have your house back?" And that's the first thing they know about it. They then get flown back to wherever they come from, and the new guy then has a British passport, and he stays here, and he's got a new life set up.
Well, it isn't forced conscription, but
And that's more than one person. That's been hundreds.
But moving on, because that's the response. You have these people who are told they're British by the official line. They seem to be exactly the same as those in Ukraine who thought, "Are you stupid? I'm not going to die for this." And then we have, I'll just end this for the sake of time, on the patriotic right. What have they been up to? Well, they're just producing posters, propaganda posters about how you should die for multiculturalism, which I've got to admit is a hell of a response. So, for people listening, if you want to protect migrant social housing, join the army today. If you want to defend the erasure of English identity, join the army today. If you want to safeguard a new city of immigrants every year, the size of Birmingham, this isn't a surprise. And this ends up with the situation being that the response to all of this is that literally every part of England's response was no, not being conscripted. You've got, as they say, white cons refusing because they think the MOD hates them, non-whites refusing because they think white cons hate them, and then progressives refusing because patriotism is cringe. Yeah,
Did you?
This isn't a successful population for a war.
Sorry, was the one that you had from Juice? Was it the Photoshop he did of the inside of the helmet, and it's the London social housing?
Yeah, I had quite a lot of.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, remember, this is what I'm fighting for.
Yeah, but there we are. This conversation, I think, is a proper point of notice for a lot of people, which is that this society is so badly managed and functioned, and its future is so poor in the sense of cohesion or any kind of vision. So it's just chaotic and full of, like, just going to call it drama, but ethnic conflict. That when you actually come to a conversation of, can we get anyone to voluntarily or even involuntarily fight for the army? No. Nobody wants to fight for this place because it is that much of an S show. And that's the reality. This is not World War I, where towns of boys are going to sign up.
Lie about their age to sign up as well.
That is never happening. And that is the result of the political leadership.
Well, unless, of course, it turns out that Russia has been gassing its own citizens, or we start to see some new headlines about, guess what Putler's been up to this time, boys.
You appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters? You can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on that site, such as the Epoch series, this episode on Henry III. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.